Hi, welcome to lecture 3 of Marketing Analytics. This particular lecture, we are going to look at marketing mix and the customer buying behavior analytics by looking into marketing mix modeling, and then we'll be looking into customer segmentation, targeting, and positioning. I've split up this lecture into two parts, where the first part will be looking at the marketing mix modeling, and then the second part will be looking at the customer segmentation, targeting, and positioning. What we want to make as our key learning objectives for this particular lecture is that we want to define the principles of concepts of marketing mix modeling. We are trying to understand and run and determine significance of linear regression modeling, as well as understand, run, and interpret segmentation, targeting, and positioning of marketing analytics techniques. So, to begin with, we need to first understand what is the marketing mix, or going back to the basics of the 4Ps. The product, of course, is the tangible or intangible service that meets a specific need. The price is the amount that the customers is willing to pay for the particular product or service. And the promotion includes the marketing communication strategies that we are trying to reach out to the customers to buy the product or service. And finally, the distribution channel, or the place where the company sells the products or how it delivers the market. So this is the basic 4Ps. So what is the marketing mix modeling? Understanding these 4Ps. So the MMM, or the triple M we call it, is a way for us to understand how various marketing activities can drive business metrics of a product. This can also mean that at the end of the day, using the marketing mix modeling, we can do a decision-making tool by brands to estimate the effectiveness of various marketing initiatives and increase the return on investments, or the ROI. So how does a marketing mix modeling work? Well, first off, the marketing mix modeling breaks down your business metrics to differentiate between contributions from the marketing and the promotional activities. So the promotional activities could be the incremental drivers and versus the other base drivers. Now, the base drivers are basically the base outcomes without any advertisement. That means what are the objectives that we want to achieve. So it could be brand equity built over the years. These base drivers are usually factors that is beyond our control, and they are fixed. So kind of like price, distribution, seasonality, and macroeconomics factors. Incremental drivers are then the outcomes that is generated because of our marketing activities, like our ads on TV and print, our digital, as well as the discounts that we put in, kind of like the promotions and the social outreach that we do on social media, and of course the ABL and the TBL, which are the targets and the directed marketing, and the TTL. And these are certain concepts that we will explain in this lecture. There are also other drivers that drive the marketing mix model, which are also subcomponents of baseline factors and are measured as brand value accumulated over the time period that the marketing activities have a long-term effect on. So for examples like competitions, what are the direct and indirect competitions, and certain halo effects, and also cannibalization. What is the importance of marketing mix modeling? We need to understand marketing mix modeling because we have very limited budget when it comes to marketing. So therefore, we must make sure that we use the suitable marketing channel in fact, to do our promotion so that our marketing objectives are met and get our maximum returns on ROI. It's also to understand what are the best ways of executing our ad campaigns. We can always use the MMM to suggest the optimal spend levels in a highly effective marketing channel to avoid saturation and also the competition from other brands as well. This MMM allows for good business scenario setting. MMM can be used to forecast business metrics based on the planned marketing activities, and then we stimulate various business scenarios like increase of 10% perhaps, or levels of spend required to achieve 10% lift in business metrics and etc. Okay. So what are some of the important variables in marketing mix models? Firstly, we need to know the base. The base variables are broken down into, the marketing mix elements are broken down into three very basic variables, which are the base, the incremental, and other variables as well. Now, these three categories then will further be subdivided into range of factors that can influence the market performance of a product or service. So by understanding each of these variables, it is crucial for the marketeers to make an accurate forecast of the effects of the promotional activities and the product distribution. So let's start with our base variables. So base variables are basically the ones that the baseline impact that is achieved that is not affected by the marketing mix variables or the marketing promotion. So it could be seasonality, brand value, the equity that we just saw in our first lecture, and also things that affect the macro environment like the GDP, the growth rate, and consumer sentiment. Understanding these base outcomes is important because then we understand the product's performance and the product distribution minus the marketing activities. And when we understand this, so we can then understand the effect of our price, our distribution, and our seasonality and the macroeconomic variables. Secondly is price under the base. So price is a very significant factor when it comes to marketing mix strategy. Price determines the consumer target group as well as the strategy for how we advertise our product, position our product, and promote and distribute our product. The pricing model is the key factor affecting because pricing communicates value of a product. So if you think about what we set as a price of a product, that's the kind of value that we are telling our consumers that the product is worth. Then also the pricing can affect on the demand and the elasticity of the product. Okay, you have to make sure that you balance out the elasticity of the product, especially when it comes to the demand, and also not set a too high price that the demand will go down, or not set a too low price that the demand becomes diminished because people think that the product is not of good value. Thirdly, it's the distribution. This refers to the location of where the product or services is being offered or sold. Now, it comes with assortment and shelf life, okay? In the next few lectures to come, we are going to talk a little bit about distribution, and we're going to also break down pricing in another video. Now, for the strategy of distribution, this is really influenced much by the market structure and the firm's objectives, resources, and of course, your overall marketing strategy. Strong product distribution chain is coupled with good marketing activities, then will directly result in effective business outcomes and the achieved ROIs that we want to achieve. So having a good assortment as well is very important for product to enable consumers to have multiple options, that is to actively research and purchase. It's always good to give your consumers options so that they don't feel that they're being forced into one particular choice, which is what the consumers don't like. You can also look at base variables in terms of seasonality, which is the changes in the environment and the timing of the year. Now, the variations that occur in terms of seasonality are in periodic manner. You sometimes have the festive seasons, you sometimes have the low seasons, you sometimes have the high seasons, and so on and so forth. So these seasonal opportunities are very enormous, and often they are most commercially critical in times of the year, especially like during the end of the year where people are more celebratory. So the things that you sell like wine, food products, and so on and so forth, they all go up during festive seasons. So major share of electronic sales are around the holiday seasons, like Black Friday sales and so on and so forth. Then, of course, there are the things that we cannot control, which are also the macroeconomic variables. Now, these are greatly influence the businesses and hence their marketing strategies. Understanding macro factors like GDP, unemployment rate, purchase power, growth rate, and so on and so forth will have an influence on the consumer sentiment, even inflation rates as well. This is critical because you don't have control over these variables, but they substantially impact them. So you must also look at the current situation that your business is operating in. And these are the kind of the situations where will affect greatly how you sell or market your product. Okay. Then we look at what we call as the incremental variables, the above the line and below the line marketing activities. Now, these are variables that directly have an effect on our marketing activities. So above the line are basically the advertising activities, largely non-targeted and are wide reach. So above the lines are examples like creating awareness for our products through advertisement, radio, print, and also product placements. The advantage is that we can have strong a tailored mass reach to the audience and create awareness for long-term brand building. There is also the BTL, or we call it the below the line marketing. Now, these are more very specific and direct advertising activities that will focus on our individual consumers that we're trying to market to. These are often known, if you want to go right to the core of it, are the direct marketing strategies. They're more focused on conversion of those people who are already interested in our products and then build the brand with them. Now, examples could be promotional in sales, discounts, social media marketing, direct mail, store events, and so on and so forth. The advantages is that we can specifically now target down towards the individual consumers, the consumers that we know are going to respond positively to our marketing activities, driving the immediate impact, locking them in, and then help measure the marketing campaign and effectiveness conversion. There are also the companies that will mix them together, the ATL and the BTL, or we call it the TTL, which are basically through the line marketing. Putting the two together, recent customer trends can then help you to see shifts in customer behavior and shifts in customer solicitation. Examples of this TTL include 360 marketing, whereby we start out with a mass reach of market, and then from there we understand consumer behavior, and then we develop the digital marketing and conversion rates and tailor the specific marketing activities to those people who have responded positive to our mass market activities. Then, of course, we must not forget about the other variables as well. So in other variables, we are also looking at competition, keeping a close eye on key competition to maintain your brand's edge. There are the direct competition, which are basically the same product, businesses offering the same type of products, like Apple iPhone acting as competition to Samsung Galaxy phone and so on and so forth. And of course, there are also the indirect competitors, which are competitors who don't offer similar product but meets the same need. So for example, like Amazon, Kindle, and paperback books are indirect competitions as substitutes. They are both books, but it's just one is digital and one is not digital. So can you think of any other examples that goes into this kind of competition? There is also the halo effect. Now, the halo effect is kind of like the favoritism towards a product or brand because of the positive experiences they have with other brands. So, for example, like just because I eat McDonald's every day, I don't care what McDonald's come up with. I will try everything. So this is kind of like a halo effect because I already have a brand loyalty. Now, some people also have brand loyalty towards the Apple products. Now, Apple has come out with some very, very bad products, but consumers don't care about these bad products because of the halo effect, because of the long-term brand building that they've already had with Apple. So even if they come up with very bad Apple tablets, for example, they don't worry too much about it because they've already had such a good, strong affiliation with the Apple brand through their iPhones. And of course, finally, there is the cannibalization effect. Brands that offer the same kind of products within the same kind of duration, you might have to see that the two products under the same brand might cancel out each other in terms of cannibalization. Now, this is mostly occurring with brands with multiple or similar categories. So for example, like iPads or MacBook, you notice that when the MacBook came out, a lot of people, when the iPad came out, the iPad really cannibalized the MacBook sales, and the MacBook sales plummeted because iPads were actually much more impressive in terms of its presentation as compared to the MacBook series. So this is what we mean by some of the variables that is important for us to put in our marketing mix modeling. So in marketing mix modeling, base variables and incremental variables of other products of the same brand are then tested to understand the halo and cannibalizing impact on the business outcome and the product under construction. So you also have to think about there are new emerging variables now because of the digital age. And these new emerging variables are basically product trends or market trends, because people's how we say this, their taste and their variation changes over time, and the demand for consumer product also changes. So you must make sure that you take into this account as well. Then there is the massive product launches or the events that come up in arms, and we're not talking about the event launches. We're talking about the product launches that invest carefully to position a new market, a new product into the market to support a new launch of a product. Okay, so for example, like if we talk about the Apple, what about every time an iPhone new model comes up? So this positioning of these new product launches will have an effect on the sales and distribution, and also the marketing mix, return on investment on the other Apple products and also its competitors. Events and conferences, brands also look for good opportunities to meet people face to face with prospective customers who are already within a certain meeting hall. Like for example, if let's say academics go for education conferences, booksellers will always hold their booths there and sell educational technology and also books. So this will of course have an effect on the marketing ROI of those products. There is also the behavioral metrics, right? For example, if we were to change certain touch points for the consumers, especially if you're doing digital marketing, then we will have a much more understanding of what makes the customers tick, and also upgrade the repurchase metrics rate provided by understanding a deeper insight into the customer. And finally, in the world of social media, you cannot discard the fact that social media trends and also sentiments are important to track. And these can come in the form of comments, likes, shares, and so on and so forth. So never underestimate these new emerging variables when you're doing marketing mix modeling. Okay? So when we want to do the marketing mix methodology, we need to prepare our data, capture every single data that we can help to identify key measurable metrics in our marketing mix model. Now, each of these variable categories can be included when developing a strong marketing strategy, involving a set of metrics that are used to measure the performance of different marketing activities. Now, I'm not going to go through all the baseline variables and metrics that we're going to use, but you can just look at some of these on your own time. So for example, like discounts. If let's say you're talking about discounts, what is the average price discount, and average price discount on the product in a particular time period, or weighted based on the share of the product sales. And then we can also look at the seasonal, like the holidays, the effect of the holiday effects, and then the digital impressions as well. Certain other variables, you can take your time to look at these variables as well and see what are the metrics that you can use that will add on to your marketing mix modeling. So what are some of the types of analysis that you can do in marketing mix now that you understand the variables? Of course, the easiest one would be exploratory analysis, where you can just use one variable and then look at the trend in that variable, or you can look at a combination of relationship between two variables, or you can look at a combination of many variables affecting one variable, which is a regression. So for example, univariate analysis by looking at patterns, creation of new variables and outliers and missing data, and bivariate analysis by looking at relationships. So if you're looking at a univariate analysis visualization, you can look at frequency tables, line charts, pie charts, bar charts, histogram, and many other types of univariate analysis. Whereas if you're looking at bivariate, you might want to look at the different types of the scale measurements. For example, if you're looking at two quantitative variables, you might want to look at correlation. But if you're looking at a particular quantitative variable, breaking it down by comparison of groups in terms of category, then you might want to look at independent sample t-test or even ANOVA. If you're looking at two categories, categorical variables to see if they have an effect on each other, then you might want to consider looking at the chi-square test of analysis. So if let's say we take an example of a linear regression or the multiple linear regression, this will use us to predict the most effective, efficient mix of all marketing variables. Now, the data is broken down into two categories when it comes to linear regression. One is the dependent variable, which is the outcome variable that we're trying to measure. And of course, the independent variable, which is data that we have and that we're trying to use that to predict what is our outcome variable. The outcome variable could be sales. The analysis of how the independent variables can impact outcome is the crux of the regression, which means we're trying to look at how the independent variables have an effect on the dependent variables in relation to all the other independent variables as well. And by doing this, marketeers will be able to provide a good estimate, an accurate estimate of the marketing mix companies and the net profits. Just like using the dependent variable as in Y, the betas, of course, like the coefficients and how strong a particular independent variable is in effect towards the dependent variable. So there is a video that I'd like you to look into, which is the regression video. And I want you to also look at how the reporting is done in terms of looking at marketing mix models. So for example, like in this particular example, you see that for the first hypothesis, advertising budget has an effect on album sales. So it is a strong effect whereby the t-value is 12.261. And therefore, this particular variable of advertising budget, how much we spend on advertising budget, will definitely have an effect on album sales. Okay, so spend some time going through that particular video. Now, this ends part one. Now, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to turn your attention into the part 2 video where we're going to look into a little bit about where we can go if we do not have a hypothesis and we just want to look into the patterns that emerge from our data. All right, so thank you and see you in the next video.